This meeting is being. Welcome everyone to the Star Chamber. It's going to be Jennifer Small and Juxtaposition are going to go through the case of the mysterious disappearance, abduction, and murder of Stephanie Bryan, age 14, and that occurred on April 28th, 1955, in the city of Berkeley, California, right off Ashby Avenue near Claremont Avenue, adjacent to or possibly on the Claremont Hotel property, which is a magnificent hotel that opened for business in 1915. The Claremont Hotel opened. It had been under construction for some time prior to that. All right, so welcome, Jennifer. How are you tonight?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Okay.
You had a chance to look at my prepper video on this?
Yes, I did. And I read almost all your research articles too. I got through
great. Well, let's just start with what's your initial feel? You're a Star Chamber, senior member. And what strikes you about this? We're back in Berkeley. You and I have done several videos on Berkeley over the years. Yeah, over it's a historical place here in California. But what smacks you about this Stephanie Bryan case?
Well, I was struck first and foremost by the objects that were found in the suspect's basement. And I used to watch some true crime shows on television where they'd reenact the crime and reenact the policeman who solved the crime, and then there'd be some psychoanalysis. And one of the things I learned is that often killers will keep souvenirs of the body because they get excited reliving the murder. It was very exciting for them. And so they have these little souvenirs from the body, from clothing to objects. And it's like an athlete looking at his trophy again or an Academy Award again or something. It means something to them. So that really stuck out for me. And his behavior has been very suspicious. He's changed his story many times about where he was and when he went to his cabin and so forth. And that's usually a red flag too, if a person can't keep their story straight. So I thought, well, maybe this is one of those stories where the guy really did it. It wasn't a patsy. But if that was the case, we wouldn't be talking about it because there are a lot of strange things about it. And in terms of what struck me, I just always feel so sad about these two. What a beautiful young lady and her whole life ahead of her. And the parents probably thought they had a wonderful living and school situation for their children. And boom, she's gone in the most horrific way. And so for her sake, it's worth pursuing justice, even after all these years. And also, if this guy was framed, it's worth pursuing justice for him too.
Yeah. Yes. Well, I know the neighborhood very well. We've done many bicycle rides that starts at the Pete's Coffee. The Pete's Coffee is on Domingo, which is the street just below Stephanie. Stephanie Street is off Ashby Avenue. Ashby Avenue, for those who are not paid members of my channel, Ashby Avenue is also known as Earl Warren Freeway, Highway 13, Unity amongst Mason. The street is actually a highway. It's kind of a confusing street. As a highway, it's a 2-lane north-south. It's 4 lanes total. It's 2 lanes going north and it's 2 lanes going south. Then the freeway changes names when it gets to the city line of Berkeley, and it becomes Ashby Avenue. Now, sometimes it's referred to as Tunnel Road because Ashby Avenue, if you fade to the left, you'll find yourself climbing this mountain range above what has become the Caldecott tunnels. There are now 4 tunnels that were bored through the hill to Contra Costa County from the city of Oakland. That originally was just one tunnel, and it was called the Broadway Tunnel because it was sort of part of Broadway, which takes you from Jack London Square in Oakland to the area where I learned to ride motorcycles and develop my skills in Horse Hill, which is a part of the Caldecott Tunnel. It's where they parked all the heavy equipment, was where I learned to ride my motorcycle, and their terraced and berms became jumps for me, ski jumps. They built like ski jumps just for me, but it was all a result of boring holes in the hillside. Well, the Warren Freeway runs north-south. The tunnels run east-west, but they all come together right there at where I learned to ride motorcycles at Horse Hill. And also Power Pole Ridge line is another part of that property that I rode motorcycles on. And anyway, if you follow Ashby Avenue, continue it north, you'll end up going right down to Stephanie Bryan's neighborhood. You turn right on Bridge Street, and you take Bridge Street up a steep hill to the end of the block, and then it tees into Alvarado Road. So you have to go left or right. And so if you want to go to Stephanie's home, you go left, and you go about 4 houses down. On the right is 131 Alvarado Road. And this is where Charles Bryan and his wife lived with their 4 children, Charles and Mary Marks. Mary Marks is her maiden name. Charles and Mary Bryan lived at 131 Alvarado Road. Stephanie was their eldest child, 14. Then they have Rutledge, a son. Then they have Cheryl, Estelle, and Beatrice. So actually that's 5 children total. So she had 4. She had 3 sisters. She had 1 brother. And so there were 5 children. And they lived at 131 Alvarado Road. Now, I do encourage you to Google map that and to look at it. But remember, the house burned down in the Oakland-Berkeley firestorm, which was October 1991. And it's been rebuilt. The entire neighborhood, all the homes on that road burned down. Paradoxically, just a few houses away is where Jennifer Doudna lives on Vincente Road, which is very close to Stephanie Bryan's house. It's disturbingly close. Now, Jennifer Doudna hadn't been born. She wasn't born until 1962 or 63. And this all came down in 1955. If you continue down Stephanie Bryan's street, a few more houses, it dead ends, a dead end cul-de-sac. But there's an easement, little trail called the Evergreen Pathway. And it's narrow and it's unpaved. And Stephanie would go through there, and you pop out on the other side at the Claremont Hotel parking lot, where you have a couple of different ways you can go from there to walk to school, because she was going to intermediate school known as Wilbur Junior High School, which is 1.5 miles distance from her house at 131 Alvarado Road. It's 1.5 miles exactly. And she used to sneak through the easement and through the hotel property, because it knocks distance off, as opposed to having to go the opposite direction and down Bridge Street and to Ashby Avenue. You're adding an extra 1.5 blocks of walking. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Well, yeah, she probably did this on a daily basis. This was probably her normal routine. And so if someone's watching her, observing her, and thinking, how can I get this girl? That's a very easy thing to do. She always takes this path every day after school.
I guess, except, the street's really narrow and there's no center line, and the only people who are on that street are the residents themselves.
I'm talking about the path. Like she goes.
No one can see anything on that path. That path.
She goes from school,
right,
and maybe she gets a donut or something.
Right.
Then she goes to the parking lot at the Claremont Hotel, and then she goes behind the Claremont and goes up the path. Correct?
Right. And that parking lot's real busy at the Claremont Hotel.
Well, if you're some ghoulish guy, maybe, who sees her,
Or an employee of the hotel. Let's say you're an employee.
who sees that this pretty young girl does the
Uh-huh.
same thing every day and at a certain time every day. Maybe you've seen her at the donut shop or the pet store or the parking lot, and she does this every day.
Right.
And you want to snatch somebody. Unfortunately, she's setting herself up because she's showing that she has a pattern where she can always be found at a certain time, and then she's going to go into a secluded, narrow trail, which sets her by herself, which sets her up for entrapment for somebody who might
Well, I would disagree with you.
okay.
No, I would really disagree with you because whoever abducted her, because I think we all agree she disappeared. She disappeared. Mm-hmm. It looks like an abduction, but her two library books that she just checked out within 30 minutes of her disappearance, her personal notebook where she had a half written letter she was writing to a friend but hadn't completed yet, her French textbook, her glasses, her red purse, her wallet inside the purse with her student ID. Those things were all found and would have been taken by her abductor. So I just wanted to put this in perspective that the Claremont Hotel is a really busy hotel. So if you're going to be some creepy guy hanging out there, you're going to draw attention to yourself, and people are like, "What are you doing here? You know, are you a customer? Are you a guest? Are you staying in the hotel? Are you interviewing for a job? Why are you hanging out at this trail?" Number two is if you're going to abduct a girl who's carrying 3 books, a French book and 2 library books, that's 3 books, and a notepad, and glasses, and a purse. How are you going to do it? I mean, you can't tell the people and guests at the hotel, hey, you didn't see anything. I got to wrestle this girl into the back of my car. So I really don't think you could pull off the abduction in the parking lot of the Claremont Hotel. So then the only other place is to follow the path back to Stephanie Street, which would be the dead end cul-de-sac. Could you do it there? You can, but go Google it. You've got 4 houses right on you right there. So you have to pray that none of the neighbors are watching you abduct this little girl who's going to be not cooperating. She'll be uncooperative, and she's going to drop the books. Aren't the books going to get dropped? Aren't you going to throw the books at your abductor and run? Unless you have a stun gun, but then now you have a problem because she's going to drop the books if you stun her, right? So then you're going to have to go back and pick up the books while you're trying to be invisible. Or you have a team of 3 men. One takes the books, the other 2 men handle her into the car. Now you still have a problem because there's homes on both sides of this narrow road, Alvarado Road. So you have to hope that no one sees you because it's like 4 o'clock in the afternoon now. And people are starting to go shopping for groceries or coming back from work early. Or they're coming back from picking their kids up at school, maybe if they've been out doing errands and they picked up their kid and they're coming back on that road. You can't get 2 cars on that road. It's like one at a time. Remember back in 1955, they made the cars, they weren't Mini Coopers, they were really big. You can only drive 1 car at a time. So the other person has to pull all the way over and you can barely get by. So if you're abducting a 14-year-old girl, I mean, you're really rolling the dice here of not getting caught, because not only do you have to go all the way down the entire length of one city block of Alvarado Street, then you've got to decide, are you going to escape on Vincenti Drive past Jennifer Doudna's house? Because that'll eventually take you back to Ashby Avenue, the Warren Freeway. Or are you going to turn right on Bridge Street? And then you have houses on both sides there that maybe they're not going to pay attention. And then on Ashby Avenue, no one's going to pay attention to you because there's no sidewalk and there's no bicycle lane, and everybody's racing to go home or to get to work or somewhere. And it's pretty high speed. The traffic's speed limit, I think, is 35, but everybody goes 45 at Bridge Street. They're going 45. So they're not going to be looking at a car trying to make a left. They're just going to make sure they don't hit it. But I just don't see how one person by himself alone who weighs 134 pounds can take care of a teenager in the passenger seat or the back seat with school books and deal with the rush hour traffic on Ashby Avenue. I couldn't do it myself. I absolutely couldn't do it. I need at least two other men to do it. Now, could you do it? You could. It's just I would pick a different spot along her route, walking to school. That's actually I would not pick that spot. You could get busted there. There's a very high probability you're going to have a lot of people witness you getting into a struggle with a 14-year-old girl. There is really a lot of people in that area. And while the pathway is private, the entrance and exit are not. Go ahead.
Well, do we know? Are we sure then she was abducted on this path or in the wooded area in some way?
Well, we're not 100% sure that that's where it happened. It's just that according to the story, Mary Ann Stewart had tennis lessons at the Claremont Hotel Resort, and they have a dozen tennis courts. And so they walked together to the front of the hotel parking lot in front of the front door. Mm-hmm. And Mary Ann went to the left where the tennis court and the clubhouse mm-hmm. is. Mm-hmm. That's where you go to get your tennis instruction. And Stephanie said goodbye, and she went to the right, which is where the mm-hmm. evergreen path is. So we're assuming that she would have used the evergreen path. Now, if she didn't, then I don't know what the heck she's doing, because now she's going to be in the back side of the hotel dealing with the employees and the deliveries. That's where the deliveries come for the hotel, mm-hmm. is where the evergreen path is. That's in the utility part of the hotel. That's not really, it's at the end of the parking lot. It's cars can park up to the evergreen path, guests parking, but then it's workmen only after that. And again, not a good place to do an abduction, because you're going to have employees who will see you. It's a very high probability.
Well, what seems clear to me is she walked into a trap wherever it happened.
Yeah.
Okay. And I agree with you. It would have taken more than one man. You'd need two or three. I agree.
Yeah, I just that part of the story bothers me, because there was it's been glossed over. Mm-hmm. Is that we got to get our man, we got to find the body. All right. There's so many troubling aspects to this crime, but the way that it went down, just to cut to the chase here, is that Bud Abbott, who goes by Bud Abbott. So that's a play on, Abbott and Costello in Hollywood. The straight man is Bud, and Costello's the Laugh Riot. So here we have a alleged killer, who's going to be the straight man of Abbott and Costello. So that's problem number one. Why does it have to be a clown act? All right. Number two is on July 15th, Georgia Abbott, who is 5 years older than her husband, Bud, who's 27 years old. When this all happened, Stephanie Bryan is 14. Her alleged kidnapper is 27. He's going to UC Berkeley. He is on the GI Bill. He's been going there for 2 years, studying accounting at Berkeley. He is honorably discharged from the United States Army. He left the Army after 14 months because they had tuberculosis, and they had to remove half of his lung and 2 ribs. He is a little bit, weak, under the weather, so to speak, not super physically fit. He weighs 134, 135 pounds. Stephanie weighs 105 pounds. She's a young, vibrant 14-year-old girl. He's a sickly 27-year-old. Not sure how many push-ups he could do. I would gather, 1 to 2 push-ups maybe. And so he's not particularly imposing person who's going to assert his will onto another person. And his wife goes downstairs in the basement looking for costumes for a party, and she rummages through a cardboard box, discovers a red purse. She takes the red purse upstairs to the living room. There is an unnamed guest who's visiting. The home is owned by Elsie Abbott, who is the mother They're living in the mother-in-law's house. This is the mother-in-law to Georgia. This is Burton's mother owns the house, Elsie, on San Jose Avenue in city of Alameda, which is an island. It's part of the Naval Air Station, where George Morrison and Jim Morrison were living around the time that this went down. Jim Morrison was going to school in Alameda. The Doors.
Oh, yeah.
Literally. So they looked at the contents of the purse. They find a wallet. They find the student ID, Stephanie Bryant. Everybody recognizes Stephanie Bryant. You can't really believe what you read in the newspapers that exactly, but a decision was made to call the city of Berkeley police, and that was done on the 15th of July. And they sent two people out to talk and interview with Georgia and her husband, Bud, who allegedly, although I haven't seen any written notes about this, didn't seem terribly interested in the discovery of the red purse belonging to Stephanie. So that's suspicious. But, police are suspicious, period. Anyway, it doesn't take anything to make them suspicious, which is fine. It's good to be professionally skeptical, of course. But anyway, then the police left the house with the purse and the wallet, and that's what they had. And then the next day, they got a warrant to search the basement where the purse was allegedly discovered, according to Georgia. Based on Georgia's statements, they got a search warrant. So they came back on this July 16th. Now it's 2.5 months after Stephanie is missing. We're still looking for Stephanie. We don't know where she is. We're all going crazy. They had over 100 people looking for her. You should know that just before this happened, her French textbook was found on July 9th in Franklin Canyon, which is in Contra Costa County, the county over way. It as the crow flies, is 20 miles away from where Stephanie lives with her parents. 20 miles to the east is Franklin Canyon. And her French book with her signature in it was found in a canyon. I know that canyon really well. And so that means that maybe Stephanie was found there. They put 100 searchers with 9 FBI agents looking in and around Franklin Canyon. Go ahead.
Well, this is an important detail that gets passed over and glossed over, that this one book was found in this one area. And why just one book? I mean, it's like OJ throwing out the knives.
He threw the French out, and then they kept the English books.
Is this French Franklin Canyon, is that on the way to the cabin where her body was found, that area? Would you go through that canyon on the way?
No, you would not.
No.
Okay, so is it in the general direction? Yes, it's in the general direction. If you wanted to, quick like a bunny rabbit, hurry up and get to the cabin, you would avoid Franklin Canyon. It's going to add time. You're adding another 30, 40 minutes to your drive. Like, don't go there. It's out of the way. You're like, why don't we go to Joe DiMaggio's house too and visit, right? Because that's out of the way too. But Joe DiMaggio's house is on the way to the cabin too. So is the criminal courthouse for Contra Costa County. Should we go check out the court? No, I would not recommend going to the court.
Maybe the book was intentionally put that way as a decoy, like investigate this area.
And put 100 people searching for I don't know how many days.
Yeah.
And no Stephanie. But it wasted a bunch of time.
Yes.
Because we found the book and we already had the book, and then we put all this energy and nothing more. Until Georgia called the police herself on the 16th with the discovery of the red purse in the basement.
Because if this was going to be a decoy, you'd have to be some sort of strategic criminal. Okay, I'm going to put some evidence here, some over there. I'm going to zigzag all around. And this man, Bud, doesn't strike me as being a strategic thinker or a strategic planner, because if you were going to fake it, then you'd have some reaction when the police came over. You'd act like, oh my God, how did her purse get in the basement? You wouldn't just be...
If you believe that. See, I don't believe any of these ridiculous stories that all came from newspapers. that he didn't have reaction. Maybe he did, and they're just lying about it, right? So I don't ever want anything that I read in the newspapers, like Sonny Barger told me. He told me to believe nothing that I read. And when Sonny Barger said that, I didn't get the impression that I could believe, pick and choose things that I want to believe. He said, look, Sonny Barger would know, he's part of this whole Cal Berkeley, Oakland City Army base operation of drug dealing, gun running, and concealment of crimes involving the Veterans Hospital, which Bud probably used the same Veterans Hospital that Sonny Barger was given a house next to that hospital. So anyway, he told me to believe nothing I read in the newspapers about him or Altamont or the Altamont concert or anything in general that I read in the newspapers. He said, just read like the comics, like read the comics.
But wasn't this his behavior in reality? I thought it was written up in a police report that
showed.
No, okay.
It's not. I haven't seen. Everything is coming from media. It's not coming from the police report. If I was, I'd publish the police report. Now, I did publish the court findings and on the appeal of his conviction for murder. And there's no reference in there because you can't send a man to the gas chamber or appeal it based on the reactions to the first interview of detectives. That's not evidence of any crime. And people are nervous around policemen. And if you're not, then you need to drop some acid. You should be nervous around policemen because they are trained, number one, to lie to your face. And number two, gaslight you to upset you into blurting. They want you to blurt out something because they think your utterances could be truthful. So policemen are trained tactically to make people fearful or annoyed or angry, because then you'll get an utterance. They want an utterance. And so I wasn't there. See, like if I was there witnessing the interview, then I'd comment on it, but I wasn't there. So I'm not going to judge. I'm not judging Bud Abbott based on rumors and innuendo, because it's unsubstantiated poppycock as far as I'm concerned. I don't know if it could be true, but I mean, space aliens could have done it too. And I don't know. I wasn't there. So go on, Jennifer. What's your next point on that?
No, I was just trying to say that I don't think I'm sort of leaning more toward he was a friend. This was a frame because I don't see him as a strategic thinker based on what I've read. But then you know how can I read?
Well, it's confusing. Chaos, and that is a military program where things don't make sense. That actually is a program. That's a military program. In other words, it's strategic that things don't make sense. It's strategic that things don't make sense. Because look, if you really did do the murder, let's say Bud did the murder, he'd have to be like Houdini on a magic carpet. I think this girl could out wrestle him. I really do. And so I don't know how he's going to be able to keep all of her books and her notes and her purse together whilst he's wrestling her too, and preventing her from escaping and fleeing him. So that's a question that I don't believe he could do it. I don't believe he could do it. Now, were there other men involved? There would have to be. There would have to be other men involved with Bud. Or maybe Bud was a lookout guy, or maybe Bud was a surveillance guy, which he could do that. He could be a lurker. He could do that. But is he up to the job of kidnapping a 14-year-old? I don't think so. I want, guys that can do push-ups and sit-ups and can physically overwhelm her. They could handle the job. And I also want them to have a taser stun gun. I do. Your local sheriff, they have those. So could a policeman do it? Yeah, a policeman, but not one policeman. I think policemen are not competent enough to handle things by themselves alone. They do swarm. They do multiple policemen. They have backup. If you'll notice how police work, they never really confront a suspect until they have a backup. They always call for backup when they think that they're going to make an arrest. Got to have backup because they're afraid they're going to lose the fight. And you know what? They probably would lose the fight and get killed too. So not even a policeman would try to abduct a 14-year-old girl by themselves alone. So would a 134-pound tuberculosis survivor? I don't think so. But anyway, that's the narrative. That's the narrative that the media has 100% embraced, is that he did it. He did it, acting alone, just like Lee Oswald. He did it. So now we have a French book. It's in Franklin Canyon. That makes no sense. Okay. And if you're going to find a French book in Franklin Canyon, how come I can't find one of the two library books there? Or like a trail of corn, can I find one on Alhambra Boulevard, which, by the way, is the road you take to go to Joe DiMaggio's home? Franklin Canyon tees at Alhambra, and if you turn left, you'll go to Joe DiMaggio's house. It's 4 miles to where Joe DiMaggio was born, down that street. Why didn't I find a textbook at Joe DiMaggio's house? No, I didn't. Why didn't I find one on the road that goes there? I didn't. And Highway 4 is there. Could you use Highway 4 to go over to the cabin? Yes, if you were coming from Berkeley, you'd use Highway 4. But the way that the story's been written up is he used the Caldecott Broadway Tunnel, which would mean he wouldn't need to use Highway 4 unless you were specifically trying to go to Franklin Canyon. But why would you go to Franklin Canyon? Is this where you thought you could get privacy so you could rape Stephanie Bryant? Well, let me tell you a little something about Franklin Canyon, since I know it really well, and I've sponsored 2 bicycle races there, our club race, time trial. There are people, ranchers, who have livestock that live at the bottom portion of Franklin Canyon near Alhambra Boulevard. For the next half mile, there's ranches on both sides of Franklin Canyon Road. So you couldn't rape Stephanie there because they will see you. So do you go further up and starts going up a hill? Well, I guess. But those ranchers, they sometimes they drive up the hill. So then you got to get off the road. Well, it's private property and there's barbed wire fences. On one side you have Highway 4, and then it's a lot of weeds. There's a lot of poison oak. It's not exactly an ideal place to be alone with this young girl. He was charged with rape. He was formally charged with rape. There's no evidence of any rape in this case at all. None. Because her body wasn't found for almost 3 months after her disappearance. So there's no forensic examination that could prove any rape. And you need a private place to do that. And Franklin Canyon, it's not really an ideal place to do that. Now, there were fewer people living there in 1955, but not a lot has changed in that canyon than what I'm telling you right now, is that you're just rolling the dice at 4:30. They would take a half an hour to get there from the kidnapping. If she was kidnapped in and around the Claremont Hotel, it's a minimum of 30 minutes to get anywhere on Franklin Canyon, which is 4-mile long canyon. And I don't know where the French book was found. Anywhere along 4 miles. And it would take a minimum of 30 minutes. If you didn't have to fight with Stephanie, it's still going to be 30 minutes. So then, now what? Now it's 4:30 in the afternoon. The sun is still up. It's April 28th. You're no cover of darkness. It's not very romantic over there. The ranchers are coming up and down the hill. There's not a lot of traffic. There's not a lot, but every 5-10 minutes you might get a car. So I'm just, there's other places I can think of that would be better than that, like including staying closer to Berkeley and Oakland. There's places within 5 to 10 minutes of the abduction that you could take her in an undeveloped park where you could rape her. That I can think of. I would never think of Franklin Canyon.
Well, what about these reports that people saw a man who looked like him in a car that looked like his car, sort of pulled over, and he was beating this girl behind who was in the back seat. And so 4 or 5 people claimed to be witness to this. Where did
I
that?
believe none of that. I would just delete that.
You
Did
don't get,
any of those people call the city of Oakland or city of Berkeley police after seeing a man punching or slapping a woman? Nope, no police reports.
that's what
So
the father complained about. He said,
yeah,
how,
so
how come?
nobody reported that. So this story that you're repeating again appears in the media, allegedly because the district attorney, once they decided to arrest him and charge him, they interviewed witnesses. But I don't know how the hell they'd find these witnesses. They don't have their names. There's no police report that shows their name. So you're talking about unnamed witnesses who said that they saw a man resembling the suspect, and they're anonymous, and they didn't think seriously enough to call the police. So I'm going to put that in the never happened category.
So this is a planted story.
Yes.
That,
Well, there's
that
no name and there's no report. And I don't know how the district attorney could have possibly found them unless he's clairvoyant and he can just conjure up names of witnesses that nobody knows. The police don't know who these witnesses are. This is like the Manson family trial, where the police didn't contribute to the prosecution of the Manson family. Ethel Younger, the district attorney, and Aaron Stovich, his first lieutenant, they put all the witnesses together. The police did nothing. It was all done in the DA's conference room. How would they know? They didn't go out and investigate anything, but they all figured it out in a conference room,
yeah.
like looking at a crystal ball. That's what this case is looking like. Is
Well,
like they
her
went in the room
father,
with a crystal ball and came up with these ideas.
yeah, I mean, her father called it out. He said, how can we live in a time when people can see a girl being beaten in a car and nobody calls the police? So he
Right.
called BS on that, or I guess.
BS on that. That's what it sounds like. He's calling BS on that. I mean,
Okay.
at that time when his father made that quote, what kind of a time do we live in when people don't call the police when they see a little girl getting beaten? The presumption is she's alive and she's been abducted. She's alive and she's been abducted, and we're looking for my daughter. We're looking for my daughter. So he has every reason to want to find his daughter and get real witnesses. And anonymous ghost witnesses aren't real. All right. So the timeline is she was abducted on the 28th of April. Then nothing happens. They look in and around the city of Berkeley, the neighborhood. They retraced her footsteps. I read an article that said it's 1 mile to her school. That's incorrect. It's 1.5 miles.
Excuse me, your image is gone, and I have a picture of you on a bike. Do you want to pause it? We can just keep doing it. I can hear you perfectly, but I just want you to know your image is gone, and I'm looking at your ID photo where you're
recording. Okay, back on to the story. The timeline is April 28th, 1955, around 4 p.m. We're not really sure, between 4 p.m. and 4:15. She got out of school, according to my last article, at 3:15. That is precious little time to walk 1.5 miles, visit the public library, visit a pet store, buy a book that is entitled Everything About Parakeets. She buys a book. So, by the way, that book is missing. Everything About Parakeets. Where is that book? And then they go to the donut shop, which there are 2 donut shops on her route. This time they went to Dream Fluff Donuts at College and Ashby and bought something, don't know what. The Mary Ann Stewart and Stephanie Bryan bought something at Dream Fluff Donuts. That's 3 different businesses at Ashby Avenue and College Avenue. Then they walk basically 1 mile up the hill, 1 mile to the Claremont Hotel, where Mary Ann takes her tennis lesson and goes to the left, and Stephanie proceeds to the right and disappears on the Evergreen pathway or wherever, the parking lot, and or she got to Alvarado Road, and she disappears after 4 p.m. And to tell you the truth, I don't see how she could possibly get there before 4:15. to do the 3 appointments and the 1.5 mile walk, you're really pushing it to make it by 4 o'clock. So I think it's closer to 4:15. And then her mother starts making phone calls. She calls the school. She calls Stephanie's girlfriends. And then she calls her husband at Peralta Hospital, and he leaves work early to come home. And this would have to take us into 5 to 5:30 p.m. And then the city of Berkeley commences a search, but nothing. And then the article goes on to say that the community was very concerned about Stephanie's disappearance. They don't know anything about it. I mean, the media isn't even involved yet, and no one has read their newspapers yet. It's 5:30. Nobody knows there's been a kidnapping, and the police don't even know. And you know, the first thing the police thought of, Jennifer, the city of Berkeley police, they thought she eloped and had a boyfriend, and that
Really?
wasn't a kidnapping. And so then the parents have to convince the police, no, 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 she doesn't have a boyfriend. She didn't. But that's your friendly, helpful police. My daughter's missing. Every second counts. And you're talking about she's voluntarily going missing. They did that with Aaron Valente too. They didn't want to look for Aaron Valente either.
Yeah, or run away or something like that.
They never want to commit a search. They don't. They want to say, she's a runaway. She'll show up. Let's talk to us tomorrow. Talk to us tomorrow, right? And they gave that runaround to the parents of Charles and Mary Marks Bryant. So all these articles about how the city of Berkeley got right on it, that's BS. No police are going to get on a kidnapping in 60 minutes. It's going to be 24 hours minimum before they do anything. All right. So anyway, the point is the next day, the most significant thing is it's her father's birthday. That's important. That he's a doctor. He's director of radiology at Peralta Hospital, Pill Hill, Oakland. He has just turned 44 years old now. He was 43 when his daughter went missing. Now he's 44. We still don't know where Stephanie is. And now we're looking in the general area of the walk from Stewart Street, which is at the Patty Hearst kidnapping site, 19 years in the future. That area over to Ashby and College Avenue, then up Ashby Avenue to the Claremont Hotel, to the Evergreen Pathway, to Alvarado Road. And basically that they're just rerunning the most likely route that Stephanie took. Now, Jennifer, I do want to point out to you, yes, she was in the habit of doing this probably 5 days a week when she went to school, not in the habit of doing that on Saturdays and Sundays. So 5 days a week, she would be doing that walk. Now, is there only one way that you could get to her school? No, there's about 25 different routes you could take that would all be approximately the same distance. In other words, there are so many cross streets that she could mix it up. I used to walk to school. I never always used the exact same way. I went different ways. Sometimes I used Clairwood Avenue. Sometimes I used Mandalay. Sometimes I used Hermosa. I mixed it up myself personally. So if I went missing and you wanted to retrace my footsteps, good luck. I had like 6 different routes to get to school. I mean, first you have to establish, did you walk or ride your bike? Because if I rode my bike, I did it different how I walk. Because when you walk, I can go through people's backyards. Yeah, I can do that. I can go over fences and stuff. But if I'm on my bike, I'm not going to carry my steel bike and flip it over the fence. No way. But then I don't have to because I can go really fast on the downhills. So I need to know if she owns a bicycle too. And that's never been discussed. Did she even own a bicycle? Because I personally, I would prefer to ride my bicycle to her school than to walk. There's a lot of stop signs. It would be kind of an annoying bicycle ride, but it's easier to ride a bicycle than it is to walk. It is easier. So I don't understand Stephanie, but the route that she would have taken, they would have guessed. They don't know what route. They know what street she lives on. Yeah, she lives there, 131 Alvarado Road. Go ahead, knock yourself out. They should interview every single homeowner on that street on both sides, because maybe there was a car parked there that kidnapped her. You think? Maybe? So I don't know if that was done. I mean, I'm assuming it was done, but I don't know if it was done. I don't know. So nothing happens in this case until July 9th, when her French textbook is found 20 miles away, which is a minimum of 30-minute drive in another county, Contra Costa County, near Joe DiMaggio's house in Franklin Canyon, near Alhambra Boulevard, her French textbook. And that is it. Then they put 100 people to look and search on Franklin Canyon. They find nothing. And we're back to nothing happens until July 15th, when Georgia Abbott calls the city of Berkeley police and says, I found a red purse with a wallet with the student ID, Stephanie Bryan, in my basement. And then police come over to her home being her mother-in-law's home, Elsie Abbott's home, and they interview the family, of which consists of four people. We have Christopher, age 4, Christopher's mother, Georgia, who had called the city of Berkeley police. And we have Burton Abbott, the 27-year-old husband. And we have his mother, Elsie. And we have 4 people. And they're all interviewed about where we found the red purse. Then the police leave, and the next day return with a search warrant to look through the basement, and they dig up the sand portion to find 5 items. They find 5 items in the sand at 8 inches deep in sand, and they find Stephanie's glasses. They find a personal notebook where she had a half-written letter to a friend. They found 2 library books. And there's no mention of Everything to Know About Parakeets. So that book appears to be missing, Everything to Know About Parakeets. And they have the red purse in the wallet that they collected the night before on the 15th of July. So now they are very suspicious about Bud Abbott because, you know, he's a man and he goes to University of California, Berkeley. He's been going there on the GI Bill for 2 years. They asked him his route that he takes from the city of Alameda to Cal Berkeley, and he gave him 2 different ways he takes, which there's a dozen ways you can take to get to the campus. It depends on where you're going to park your car. It depends which school of the many schools on the campus are you headed to. And are you going to the business school? Are you going to, the English literature part? Where are you going at Berkeley? And that will determine the route you take. The main roads that everyone should know by watching the Juxtaposition channel is, did you use Telegraph Avenue? That takes you down to Sather Gate at Bancroft, Telegraph and Bancroft. That's a very direct route. Another is, did you go up Broadway in Oakland, then peel off to the left on College Avenue and take that? Another is, did you turn on Claremont Avenue, go up to where Stephanie lives at the Claremont Hotel, then follow the route past the hotel and you get on Piedmont Avenue? That takes you to the Fraternity Row, all student housing on the right, and then the Memorial Stadium. You could use that, or you could use San Pablo Avenue. You could use Sacramento Avenue. You could use Adeline and Shattuck Avenues. All of those roads will take you to University Avenue and University of California, Berkeley. See, look how many ways you can go to Berkeley. There are many different ways. Today you've had BART and we have a freeway that's built out. So there's actually more ways to get to the campus today than there was in 1955. But he gave the police 2 basic ways that he goes. And then the newspaper wrote it up as that those mirror the route that Stephanie Bryan took. That's a bald-faced lie. Stephanie lives to the east of the campus, and her intermediate school, her junior high school, is really close to Dwight Way, which is next to Bancroft, which is near Sather Gate. She's only 3 blocks from Sather Gate. But to go there, she has to go east to west. She's going east to west on a series of different streets. Bud Abbott is in the south, in Alameda, is very far south. He has to go south to north, then north to south to go back and forth from his mother's house. So you see, it can't mirror. Stephanie's going east, west, west, east. He's going north, south, north, north, south. And only if he chose College Avenue would the two intersect. The only place that he could have possibly met her would be at the corner of Ashby Avenue and College, which I just told you. She went to the pet shop, she went to the library, and she went to the fluff donut shop. So she does use that intersection. That's an extremely high traffic intersection. I use that intersection hundreds of times. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Well, one thing, it just occurred to me, does this man have any history of arrests, or does he have a rap sheet? Because, I forget his age, but does he wake up one morning and think, well, I've been a law-abiding citizen all my life, but today I'm going to kidnap and rape and murder a girl because what the heck? Right. I've got nothing else to do. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, there's no criminal record of this fellow whatsoever. None.
So that adds suspicion in my mind. I mean,
he's clean.
Yeah.
And so this would be a one and done, first and only. And like I said, when the newspaper says their paths mirrored each other, that is a deliberate bald-faced lie. She's going east to west and west to east. That's her pattern every 5 days a week. She goes east-west. He goes like 3 days a week because he's not going full-time to Berkeley. I think he has a part-time job, although they won't identify any work that he was doing during the 2 years he was going to Berkeley. So he's going probably at least 3 days a week to Berkeley, north-south.
That's another framing by the newspaper. So I'm starting to see the newspapers being more and more culpable in this.
Well, they're part of the criminal event.
Yes.
They either conceal the facts or insert false narratives to create more chaos, because the more we start focusing on Bud Abbott, that means the real killer or abductors are completely deleted from the story.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no investigation that goes beyond Burton. I mean, once you lock on, you're just looking, it's called reinforced bias. Now you're biased toward it's him, and you're just going to collect more things to convince yourself that it was him and it was always him and there's no one else. Then just to throw a monkey wrench in it, besides the fact that everybody's looking at Bud because he's 27 years old and he's not very assertive and it's easy to pick on him, is that Georgia, who's 5 years older, she's 32 years old. That's his wife. Her father's name is Wilbur Moore, and Wilbur Moore is in a land partnership with 20 acres of mining land in Trinity County, California, which is 5.5 hours north of the city of Berkeley. And he's in a partnership with a miner, Lloyd Schneider. And in 1950, Lloyd Schneider, whilst in partnership with Georgia Abbott's father, whose name is different, right? Wilbur Moore. Lloyd Schneider has another man over to the cabin on the 20-acre property, gets in an argument with him, shoots him dead inside the cabin, kills him, then goes and gets a hacksaw and proceeds to dismember him in the bathroom, in the bathtub, I guess, I'm assuming, and then puts the different body parts into gunny sacks, goes outside the cabin and buries the gunny sacks in different parts in a perimeter pattern around the cabin in the Trinity County. And the sheriff eventually finds most of the body parts. It's very unclear how many body parts and if they got them all. And that comes up later, but that's in 1950. Lloyd Schneider is convicted, but not necessarily of first-degree murder, because he had a justification of why he killed the guy. The guy deserved it. So he was sentenced to state prison, and he was released in February 1955, 2 months before Stephanie Bryan goes missing. We have a man who is experienced in shooting and killing another man, dismembering him, and burying him on the same exact property that we later find Stephanie Bryan's body buried in, which begs the story, if you found Stephanie Bryan's body 300 feet away from the cabin on a steep hill, hey, by the way, did you find any other body parts from the dead guy from a few years earlier? I'm just curious if the sheriff got all the parts, because I never saw an inventory list. We checked everything off. Maybe there's a missing hand or arm or leg somewhere, and those bloodhounds could sniff it out, right? You think? So anyway, what I wanted to tell you is that she went missing. Her father's has his 44th birthday. Then we find the French textbook in a canyon that's a non sequitur. Makes no sense. That's not a good place to rape her. You'd have to control her for over half an hour while you drive the car. It's just very complicated to keep her under control for a half an hour while you go to a canyon that you would not get 100% privacy in. You'd get some privacy, but it's very suspicious. Believe me, the people who live on there, they are very suspicious of people who go on Franklin Canyon Road. Like me on a bicycle, if I stopped and loitered, they would be looking at me. But if I keep riding, they'd say, okay, just on a bicycle ride. They wouldn't. But if I stopped, and when I did that bike race, even at 8:30 in the morning, people said, what are you doing? I said, oh, I'm doing a bike race. Don't worry, it won't affect you. We're going to be done in 25 minutes. Okay. But I mean, they didn't not ask. They wanted to know, why are you standing in the middle of the road? Okay. Because they're nosy, because they look after each other. And that's not a good place to go rape a 14-year-old girl. Definitely not. They're not going to call the police. They're going to come over with a gun and confront you personally. Everyone on that road owns rifles.
Okay.
They're not going to call the sheriff.
In that case, I wouldn't want to even toss a piece of evidence over the side. I mean,
well, you could just throw it out the window, because you want it to be found, I guess.
Okay.
Like, how would anyone find it? Just toss it. But I don't think it would be the abductor. That would probably be someone, a month later, you say, hey, dump this textbook in a place that, has nothing to do with the murder of her. But she was murdered probably within 1 or 2 days of the kidnapping, because when the coroner finally examined her, they said she had been buried in a deep state of rigor mortis already. So she'd already been dead. So we don't know when she was buried. The presumption is that Bud drove the car 5.5 hours and buried her. Then, by the way, his brother and sister-in-law showed up the next day. They actually showed up at 3:00 in the morning. So, like, if you're going to be burying people and your brother's going to show with his wife, I mean, you're really rolling the dice. I mean, for Burton to pull this off, he could have been witnessed many times, and this girl probably would have escaped, and they would have identified his license plate, and none of that happened. None of that happened, which begs the question, maybe he wasn't present for anything to do with Stephanie at all, ever, and that somebody else did it, and now we're just sheep dipping him into this. So anyway, this takes you out to, we discovered the French book on the 9th of July. Then, like I said, his wife called the city of Berkeley police on the 15th. They got a search warrant for the 16th. Now they find a brassiere, they find the 2 library books, and they find her notepad. They ask Burton to take a lie detector test. He voluntarily does so. He does not pass the test. He does not flunk. He does not flunk the test. It's inconclusive. So there's no arrest. No arrest is made. It's the 16th of July. We have a brassiere. Now we have the 2 library books. We have the French book. We have the wallet. We have the red purse. We have her glasses. Her eyeglasses were found in the sand. But we have no body. So then we know by interviewing Georgia that her father owns this 20-acre parcel where a homicide had happened. And we know that bodies were buried up there. So on the 17th, 18th, 19th of July, I'm assuming that police would have searched the cabin and grounds. You got 20 acres to look at, and the cabin, and underneath the cabin if it has a basement. And I don't know if that was done. But here's the next big crack in the case. On July 20th, William Randolph Hearst's company. William Randolph Hearst, that we all know, he passed away 4 years earlier, but his second son is the managing director, William Randolph Jr. He's the managing director of the Examiner newspaper in San Francisco, which is the afternoon edition. And he charters a plane and puts Ed Montgomery, who is a journalist, reporter, with a photographer. I guess they're very confident they're going to take photographs. And his photographer's name, I've written it down, of course, and cannot find it. Par for the course, right? So it's in the notes, in the show notes, you'll find the photographer's name. His name is similar to the victim, right? Stephanie Bryant. Well, his name is Bob Bryant. Just add a T to Bryant and you'll have the photographer for the San Francisco Examiner, which is part of the Hearst publishing empire. Mm-hmm. They charter a plane and they fly, 2.5, 3 hour flight to Trinity Alps. I think they land in Hayford, and then they have to rent a car and drive backwards to get to Wildwood, because he's not in a town. He's outside of the town of Peanut. Peanut, I'm sure everyone's heard of Peanut. There's no grocery stores anywhere near these places. And they contract a hunter and his 2 hound dogs, and then they get out to the cabin in the late afternoon, don't know what time, and they start looking for body parts. And then at 8 p.m. at night, they discover Stephanie Bryant's grave 300 feet approximately away from the cabin on a super steep hill. And they didn't find any body parts of the other dead guy that was buried on the property. That's kind of funny. Anyways, but I understand this body would have been buried probably in the last 2 months, right? In a deep state of rigor. And it's not the sheriff. It's not the city of Berkeley. It's not the sheriff of Trinity County. It's William Randolph Hearst newspaper who chartered the plane, who hired the 2 bloodhounds and their owner. The San Francisco Chronicle, which every day has been reporting on the Stephanie Bryant disappearance, it's them who discover a deceased Stephanie Bryant. Do you find any conflict of interest here, Jennifer, with what is taught in journalism school, that you should hire guard dogs and hire bloodhounds, and you should, if you can't wait around for police, just make it happen for me. Just find a body. Jennifer, back to you.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's one of the things that struck me as I saw the write-ups, they refer to this as the crime of the century. I don't think it's the crime of the century, but that's part of the hype. And yeah, it was a different era. It's nothing that I would have experienced in my career as a journalist or have known about. Yeah, it does seem like they knew exactly where to go, and they were prepared and they were going to crack the case, and it was going to sell a lot of newspapers. So
yeah, I'm sure it did. Well, other little footnotes on this is that there's signs and symbols going on here. And I have a collage of photos I'd like to show you and the audience, Jennifer. But the school that she goes to, which is called the Wilbur Junior High School, Wilbur, the street address of her school is a Masonic number 13. It comports to number 13. Now, I know not everybody's on board with signs and symbols, but dates, ages, street addresses are always included in military crimes, always. And it turns out that Stephanie went to the Wilbur Park every 5 days a week. Wilbur Park and the Wilbur Junior High School is at 2425 Stewart Street, which again is 3 blocks from Sather Gate, which is the main entrance to the campus, and Sproul Plaza, and the obelisk, the Campanile clock tower of University of California, Berkeley, which is the first university in the state of California. It was called the College of California. Then they renamed it University of California. systems, and they now have at least 9 campuses throughout the state. But this was the first. It was founded in April, I believe it's April 16th, 1860 was when Berkeley was open for education and military development of weapons. Berkeley has always been involved in weapon research from day one. All right. And if you're wondering who's polluting your skies, you can put Ted Kaczynski on the map. He knew. Corey Hall, Terra Swarm, 2626 Hearst Avenue. I said Hearst Avenue, named after Phoebe Hearst. The Hearst family is inextricably linked to the College of California and UC Berkeley. They have donated gajillions of money to the campus. They have an anthropology museum Phoebe Hearst founded. She has a street named after her, Phoebe Hearst Avenue, which becomes Cyclotron Way, Cyclotron Road, named after Ernest Lawrence of the cyclotron machine. They are all over the Cal Berkeley campus. And in 1974, they had their granddaughter, Patty Hearst, kidnapped 1 block from where Stephanie Bryant went to school at the Wilbur. Wilbur Junior High School is 1 block from Patty Hearst's kidnapping. Did you hear what I said? And Patty Hearst's house has a Masonic number also. Mm-hmm. I'm not here to she's at 2603 Benvenue Avenue. Go Google it. 2603 Benvenue Avenue, apartment number 4, which is an 1111. It's the same address as the Scottish Rites Temple in San Francisco for the Masonic Order, is at 1111 California Street. Well, so is Patty Hearst's apartment number, same number. And she's at 2603, which adds up to 11, which is the Paul Pelosi addresses. Every house that the Pelosi's live in is a number 11. And Patricia Hearst was kidnapped from a number 11 house. And then she was put into Masonic homes in Haight-Ashbury, San Francisco, on Haight Street and Masonic Avenue and Golden Gate Avenue. They're all Masonic. So we have that going on with Stephanie Bryan. And then you have the fact that her father's birthday is Friday, April 29th. Well, the 29th is a 13, 2-9 is a 13, Unity amongst Masons, and it's Friday. It's Friday the 13th. Mm-hmm. And her father is going to be 44 years old on Friday the 13th, 29, which is 13. So I'm telling you that it could be, if you open your eyes a little wider, you might think that maybe Dr. Charles Bryan was the target of this kidnapping to punish him by murdering his eldest daughter, like they did with Sharon Tate, like they did with John Ramsey, killing Elizabeth Ramsey in Cicero, Illinois in 1992, then killing little John Benet Ramsey on Christmas Day in 1996 on the 25th of December, and placing her dead body at the foot of their Christmas tree, which is a Masonic triangle, like they did with John Ramsey. That's 2 dead daughters, like they did with Louis Brown, killing his first daughter from his first marriage, then killing Nicole Brown Simpson from his second marriage. That's 2 daughters from 2 different mothers, 2 different wives. And that's the same situation for John Ramsey. It's the same situation for Paul Tate and his wife, what's her name? Doris Tate, who pimped out Sharon Tate at 6 months old in a beauty pageant in Dallas, Texas. Sharon Tate won a beauty pageant at age 6 months. Tiny Tots, Miss Tiny Tot of Dallas, Texas, really close to where John Kennedy was murdered. Sharon Tate won a beauty pageant exactly 20 years before John Kennedy was murdered. 20 years earlier, same location on Main Street, probably at, I Magnin or Neiman Marcus. Sharon Tate won a beauty pageant at 6 months old. And later she's the eldest of 3 daughters, and she was killed on Cielo Drive, Sunbrook Drive in Benedict Canyon. So the idea of killing the eldest daughter is very common. If the Zodiac killing, pardon me, 3 of the 5 victims were daughters of military officers, United States Navy, United States Army, and the State Department, in the case of Cecilia Shepard. That's not a coincidence that all the Zodiac victim girls were daughters. The eldest daughter, that's exactly like Stephanie Bryan, who is the eldest of 5 children. All right. What do you think about those apples, Jennifer?
Well, it's all part of the pattern. I mean, I think it's quite possible this young woman was a sacrifice. But the thing about the the murders that you've reported, and I have followed your channel now for at least 3 years, you can go crazy trying to figure out why. Like, why did this happen? And what did this guy do wrong? And why did they target him? And I think if you can find any of those answers, great, but you're going to go crazy trying to find it. Don't try to find it. Just identify the phenomenon of what's happening here, and that this is something that does go on. I mean, the thing that kind of touched me about this case is that there was a lot of newspaper coverage, but people in the community and the town, they really cared about finding this guy and avenging her death. And I don't think that people have that same kind of care about a dead body anymore. I think that the value of life seems to have gone down. I don't think people get shocked and horrified now the way they might have in 1955. Maybe that's just my impression. But there was a time when an unusual death, kidnapping or murder, really galvanized people. And now it only happens if it's somebody famous like O.J. Simpson or the mother of the Today Show talk show person. But where's the same passionate concern about the loss of life now? And I don't see it. I think it's part of the degrading of our society. I don't know.
Yes, as we circle the drain, Jennifer. I was going to say to sum up. I was going to give you like the epilogue, and then go through the photographs collage of the Stephanie Bryan case. Is that when her body was discovered by the San Francisco Examiner newspaper reporter Ed Montgomery and his photographer Bob Bryant, not to be confused with Bob Bryan, Bob Bryant, that was July 20th. Okay. So the city of Berkeley sent police over to Alameda, and it would have been late at night because this would have happened after, 9 p.m. would be the earliest the police could have been over to Alameda. And they arrested Bud Abbott. He was arrested that late evening on July 20th. Then the district attorney arraigned him probably the next day or on Monday. I don't know which day he was arraigned. But essentially he was charged with rape, kidnapping, and murder. And my point is that that was the date that his prosecution began, was July 20th, 1955, which was a little more than 2.5 months after Stephanie went missing, which was April 28th. Now, you should know that Bud Abbott was found guilty and sentenced to the death penalty gas chamber at San Quentin. And you should know that that occurred on March 15th, 1957. And if you count the number of months from when he was arrested by the city of Berkeley police to when he breathed his last breath in San Rafael, California, in San Quentin gas chamber, is 19.5 months. It took 19.5 months to arrest, convict, and execute this guy. That included an appeal there was jury tampering in this case. There was a female juror who thought that he was being framed, and she said so. And when the judge when he instructed the jurors not to talk about it, he dismissed the one juror who probably would have voted not guilty. So they got rid of her. and then replaced with the alternate, and he was convicted. Took 7 days of deliberation, even though everybody was unanimous that he did it. I'm just saying that, talk about warp speed. That's really fast to go from being handcuffed and booked into the jail, into the Alameda County Jail, to being put in the San Quentin gas chamber and receive 2 stays of execution. And you should know that the governor was on a Navy ship the day of that execution, I think deliberately on purpose, so that you can't call me because I'm on a Navy ship.
Mhm.
He knew that the date of the execution is the 15th. That's a Masonic number, right? Do you know that's a Masonic number?
15? 15's
Yes,
Masonic? Oh,
315.
6.
Because if you take 1 5 adds up to 6, right?
Right, right,
And
right.
then and then here's the thing is, if actually 15 can be a number by itself alone, and if you add 3 to 15, you got 18. 18 is a 666.
Mm.
So if you want to slice it that 15 is a 6 and it's a 33, then you got a 333. So you either have a 333 or a 666.
Mm.
666 is the mark of the beast, and that was when the governor, before he got on the Navy ship, he called the warden at San Quentin prison and said, delay the execution from 10 a.m. 1 hour to 11. Then at 11 a.m. they hadn't heard back anything from the governor, so they marched Bud Abbott into the gas chamber and strapped him in at 11:18, at which time the governor called back and said, I want to issue a stay of execution. Now, the warden has said, I didn't take that call, my assistant did.
Mm.
At 11:18, when there's 16 cyanide pellets that are dropped into sulfuric acid, and it takes time for this to become toxic. That had not happened yet. He's just getting strapped in, and the call from the governor is happening now. The procedure, the guards are in the chamber. There's no cyanide being released. The governor orders a stay. Then the assistant tells the warden, the governor's on the phone, and he says that we need to have another stay of the execution. And the governor, then the warden doesn't do anything, lets the guards come out, they seal it up, they drop the pellets, and his eye, it's impossible, can't stop it now. He had several minutes he disobeyed the governor, Governor Knight, and he disobeyed the governor. So they wanted this guy dead. They wanted him dead in 19 months after he was arrested.
But he disobeyed the governor knowing he could get away with disobeying the governor. He wasn't going to lose his job because
right. And then the way the newspaper wrote it up, Jennifer, was completely different than how I just described it. They wrote it up that Bud Abbott's defense lawyer wanted to get publicity for himself personally, knowing he had a guilty client. So he pulled this last second stunt to get everybody's attention away from Stephanie Bryan and onto, rush to judgment and lack of due process in the appellate, and that the governor issued a stay. And the governor said, he put me in an impossible position. I was already booked on the Navy ship and blah, blah, blah. Why did you book a trip on a ship when you know how many times they execute someone in California? Like almost never. So that would be the one day you wouldn't get on a Navy ship and be out. They have radios on Navy ships, in case you didn't know.
Yeah.
All right. So let's look at some photographs, shall we? And then we'll sort of I want your reactions of these pictures, Jennifer. So this, of course, is the lovely 14-year-old.
She almost looks like a young Judy Garland. I just saw that. Just the eyes, those expressive eyes.
Okay, this is her. I'll get out of the way. This is Stephanie with her dog. And the dog's name is Hoagie, spelled Hoagy, Hoagie. And it appears that Stephanie was interested in parakeets. She bought that book, Everything About Parakeets is the title of the book. She paid 25 cents for that, the afternoon that she disappeared.
Yes.
Probably within 30 minutes of her disappearance, she bought Everything About Parakeets. And the irony of that is that Bud Abbott owned a parakeet, a long-tail parakeet called, it's from Australia, called a pet Budgie, and it was named Davy. And when the city of Berkeley police were interviewing Bud on the 15th of July, the parakeet got out of the cage and flew around the living room while the police were there. And it's just, don't know if that's true or not. It's just very poetic and symbolic, probably. Anyway, that looks like a poodle, I think. Anyway, this is the photo op taken by Bob Bryant of the Hearst Examiner, San Francisco Examiner newspaper, where they taken the remains of Stephanie Bryant. You can see how steep that hill is. Coming down, I guess, to the cabin would be to the right of this photograph, and that the bloodhounds had sniffed her out up on that hillside above the cabin, but not finding any other body parts from a previously buried dead man on the property. So just take that, put it in your Bible.
That's a very heart-wrenching photograph. I mean,
Right.
It really gets to you. Yeah.
This is January 20th, 1955, which is a little bit more than 2.5 months after she went missing. And this is Stephanie's father. This is Charles Bryan, medical doctor, radiologist, chief of radiology for Peralta Hospital on Pill Hill in nearby city of Oakland, not far from where he lives. It's a really sweet setup he has. His commute is not far. This is our murderer, 27-year-old convicted murderer, Burton Abbott. And this is where the abduction must have happened in or around the Claremont Hotel, because we have the testimony or secondhand tale that Mary Ann Stewart was taking tennis lessons here, and she walked to the hotel parking lot. Right where that tower is where the front door is, and that's a bar saloon at the bottom of this picture to the right. And
it's absolutely gorgeous.
To the right, and her friend would go to the left. The clubhouse is on the left side, and the Evergreen Trail is on the right side of this hotel. Go ahead, Jennifer.
It's just stunning. It's gorgeous, and with the trees in the background, and it's just an absolutely beautiful hotel.
I think there's 440. There's all kinds of Masonic signs and symbols relating to the hotel, the number of rooms, the street address of the hotel. I don't want to get into it right now, but this is what this Stephanie's neighborhood looked like in October, after October 19th, 1991. Everything in that neighborhood burned down except this. This didn't burn. This is made out of wood. This hotel was made in 1910 to 1915 out of wood, and it's highly flammable. And everything to the right of that hotel along the Evergreen Trail and the Sourgrass Trail, which Stephanie walked 5 days a week on, everything else in that neighborhood was incinerated and looked just like this, but not this, which begs the question, do you think that was a direct energy weapon attack?
I was just going to say that.
Like, how did you not take this out unless you were aiming really carefully? Anyway, this hotel, I don't know how you could miss it. I mean, unless you didn't want to hit it. I mean, it's huge.
Jux, would you call that an obelisk?
Yes, I would.
Okay.
Yes, I would. This is the chain of command, power of the pyramid. If you want to know what the view is like from Stephanie Bryant's home or Jennifer Doudna's home, because they're one steep terrace above Ashby Avenue, which is the Earl Warren Freeway. This is what you're looking at. This is the view out at they look directly out at San Francisco and the Golden Gate Bridge. This is the view from the Claremont Hotel. This is the view from Jennifer. This is actually 2 houses from Jennifer Doudna's house on Vincente. This little park. This is the park closest to Jennifer Doudna's house, 164 Vincente Road. Jennifer can go over here and contemplate how many people she Frankenstein monstered, and look out at San Francisco, where CRISPR Therapeutics is directly across. You're looking at CRISPR Therapeutics at Mission Bay from Jennifer Doudna's house. How do you like that? This is Bud Abbott voluntarily taking a lie detector test which allegedly was inconclusive. You're not supposed to consider that in a trial. But anyway, I just want to know that there's quite a juxtaposition here between this beautiful historic hotel, which is 110 years old, and what the neighborhood looked like in 1991, and then to today when it's been rebuilt with insurance money, and everyone that lives on Vincente Road and Alvarado Road has a brand new home, or I guess they're 25 to 30-year homes, but they're very modern compared to when Stephanie Bryan lived there. And that just kind of sums up this video, Jennifer, is that we have signs and symbols ruling this video in the way that they rule our society. And I just can't escape it. I just can't escape it.
You also have a lackluster and corrupt law enforcement going on and sensational media. Those two things haven't changed.
Except what I would add to that is that I've myself personally, based on my personal experience and the research I've done, is that law enforcement is not lackadaisical. They deliberately, on purpose, stand down on military crime. They do not investigate it. The district attorney will not prosecute it. Now, will they arrest innocent people? And yes, absolutely. Will they arrest scapegoats? Yes. When instructed, when given instructions. Will the district attorney convict Charlie Manson and Leslie Van Houten when neither one was present in Benedict Canyon and no one ever said they were, and the prosecution never said they were, and yet they both got the gas chamber death penalty for 5 people that were killed when everyone, including the judge, agreed they were not present? Why would you do that? We know Charlie Manson wasn't there. No one said he was. And no one, not even Aaron Stovich or Evelyn Younger said he was there. But he still got convicted anyway and sent to the gas chamber exactly to a T the way that this Burton Abbott did. And nobody saw him kill Stephanie Bryan. Not one witness. Not one. Nobody has positively identified him or his car license plate. Nobody.
Yeah.
No one.
Look how quickly they found the alleged killer for JFK, RFK, Martin Luther King. Who else? I mean, when it's a really high-profile death, boom, they've got it. Yeah, they've got it.
They wrap it up, don't they?
Yeah,
they do. And I think that's what we're doing at a higher acceleration now, because the media owns the story. They present it to us. Then instead of telling us about all the minutia, like, can I see a copy of the police report? Can I see the name of the witnesses? Oh, I see we have a 22-year-old dead Indian student visa scholar here. He's dead. Could I see a picture of the backpack? Could I see the police report? Could I see his medical exam? No. But let me tell you what happened, Jennifer. Well, why don't you just report on the circumstances and then, let me handle the what happened part. But they, no. We don't want you to think what happened. We'll tell you what happened. So now we have the newspapers telling you what to believe and concealing things that you might want to know about, like who, what, where, when, how. That's like, we don't talk about any of that stuff.
No, and it's, I think the program of pacification and control is working very well on the general public, because I do feel like people have just become numb or dumbed down, and I'm not going to feel superior to anybody. I mean, it's just, I'm dumbed down too. I'm probably not as reactive to events as I once was. And that's what I mean. I keep trying to make this point that we're turning over our power to technology, and we don't question things, and whatever the media says is fine, and on to the next.
And they do it within like 10 days or less now.
Yeah.
I mean, this case took, it was 23 months from her disappearance. But once we got the guy, it was under 20 months and he's dead. So
Mm.
what I would like to sum up with, there were three victims of this terrible kidnapping. First, Stephanie Bryan, age 14, studying French. She's found dead 2.5 months after she disappeared. That's horrible. Then we arrested, arraigned, tried, and convicted a fellow with no direct evidence that he did it other than the discovery of the red purse in his basement, which might have been planted, could have been planted. I don't know. Yeah, it's incriminating for sure. It's incriminating. But anyway, he's dead. So there's no more appeals. Once you're dead, you can't appeal your case. There's no more appeals. You have to be alive to appeal. So we killed him, and he was 29 years old when he died, and Stephanie was 14 when she died. Then, paradoxically, 1 year after Bud Abbott is killed, and he's named after a comedy team, Bud Abbott, the straight guy. Then we have Stephanie's father, Dr. Charles Bryan. He's on vacation at home on Alvarado Road at 131 Alvarado Road, painting his fence, and he falls over and has a heart attack while his wife watches him painting the fence. This occurs within 3 years of his daughter's disappearance. He was 44 years old effectively when she disappeared. He was 47 when he died. I got 3 people dead inside of 3 years. Stephanie in 1955, and then I have Bud Abbott in 1957. Then I have Charles Bryan in 1958. 3 people dead inside of 3 years. I think it's a hell of a story. And it all is right where Jennifer Doudna lives today, near the next door neighbors, a walking path away on the Evergreen Pathway. You can go to Jennifer Doudna's house. That's how she would go to Pete's Coffee. If I was her, I would walk to Pete's Coffee and I'd use the Evergreen Trail, exactly how Stephanie Bryan did to go walk to junior high school. All right. Thank you so much for any final thoughts, and then we'll put this one in the can, Jennifer.
No, I think we've covered it.
Okay. I'll see you on the other side. And let me just put the thanks for everybody. Do like and share my videos. I am fairly well shadow banned, if you can imagine. Thanks for coming. Become a paid member of the channel, and we'll see you on the other side. Bye now.